So thank you everybody for tuning in today. As you know, I am Mike Monteforte, and I'm really excited about our podcast today. So we have with us Suzanne McNamara. She's from Kinship Elder Care. We're going to get into lots of details and great information about what Suzanne does. So Suzanne, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. I think that the information you have is going to be really, really valuable for the people that follow my stuff and the way it interacts kind of with what I do every day. So first of all, thanks for taking the time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited as well.
Great. That's great. So real quick, bird's eye view, Suzanne, of who you are and what you do. And then I'd just love to hear about how you got there, but we'll get to that. So
Absolutely.
General first.
Absolutely. So briefly, I am a geriatric care manager. We are actually now called aging life care professionals in the ever, changing world of titles, but
Right.
A lot of folks still know us as geriatric care managers. So briefly, if you think of doing a home improvement project to your house, like a large scale addition or something like that,
Yep.
you can hire, you can do the legwork and yourself. You can hire the flooring people and the painters and the plasterers and all that stuff, or you hire a general contractor to do that for you. So you're still in the role of making all of the decisions about your home, but you have this expert that knows the pathways, they know the time frame, they know the pricing, they know how to get you the best deal. They sort of know, they're the expert. And I sort of liken that to what I do for an elder. So, I manage the care of an elder, meaning interfacing with physicians, organizing care, giving advice, short-term planning, long-term planning, all of that stuff. So just like a contractor is sort of an expert in that field, I'm an expert in the field of aging. And so I can direct people, educate people, direct them to the right place, point them in the right direction, give them resources, and also manage their day-to-day care if that's what they want.
Okay. So, and that's amazing. I think that from the people that I see every day, lots of folks that come in to see me, they have no idea where to start, right? Sometimes they're coming in because their parent is getting older, or even it's because of a spouse and maybe they're experiencing some health issues, but they just don't know what's out there or where to turn, where to start, how to navigate this. So I love that, kind of you're there to be the navigator, right? To
Exactly.
guide them through this maze. So people that follow, my stuff and our social media know that I got into the elder law field to help my grandparents. And that's where I started and ended up finding my life's work there. And I love to hear what got other people into the field. So would you mind sharing just a little bit about that? What got you here? And then we'll get into, the nitty gritty about what you do.
Sure. So actually, we're talking many years ago now, right? So I was 14 years old looking for my first job. All of my friends were getting jobs, at grocery stores. And back then you didn't need working papers or anything like that. You could just walk in and get a job. Right. I went to my local assisted living facility and I got a job in the kitchen as wait staff in the dining room. And I carried that job all the way through high school, all the way through college when I would come home on break. And I absolutely loved it. And, I loved being with the residents. I loved, when it was time for, if there was a resident that was too ill to come down to the dining room and someone had to deliver to their room, I was always the first to raise my hand to do it. And I would just sit and I would chat with them. And I fell in love with the population, with the older adult population.
Yeah.
I loved the wisdom. I loved everything about it. And so that job, like I said, I worked all through high school, all through college. In college, I studied social work, and
okay.
out of college, my first job was actually a social worker in a long-term care facility. So I continued with the population. I absolutely loved it. Decided I wanted to go back to nursing school. So I went back to nursing school, continued to work in different environments with older adults. And, once I went back to nursing school, excuse me, and started working in, an acute care setting, yeah. What I realized was, it was kind of a natural progression to doing what I do, because in every job I ever had, any position I ever held, it was limited by whatever facility I worked in, whether it was a hospital, whether it was a nursing home, whether it was home care. It was limited. My scope of practice was limited to whenever that elder would end, when their Medicare benefit ended and I couldn't see them doing home care anymore,
Sure.
when they were out of the hospital, when they were whatever the end was, that's when I sort of stopped following them. And what
Okay.
I realized about myself is I love the progression. I like to follow people. I don't like my scope, to end. I don't want my ability to end with whatever facility they are at or whatever setting they're in. So I really, between the social work and the nursing, and then my desire to really follow people through these processes and through these facilities, I realized this is what I wanted to do. And it was kind of a natural progression.
Yeah.
And I think when I started, I didn't even necessarily realize that this was already a profession. I think
Sure.
I thought I came up with it myself, this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to do for these people. And then I realized, oh, some people already do this. Well, this is great. So it was kind of a natural progression. It was a population I always worked with. And then, I've worked in pretty much every setting. So it brings me to, the qualifications able to really do what I do well. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked
Okay.
in long-term care. I've worked in home care and hospice. So I sort of am very familiar with all of the settings that an elder might find themselves in. But I can follow them. I can help them when they're in the hospital. I can help them when they go home. I can help them if they are in a rehab facility, So
Yeah.
that's sort of my story and what got me into it and why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, I love to hear that, because I fell in love with the population as well. I have a special place in my heart for our military veterans, because my grandfather was a military veteran, and just so many members of that generation are
Yeah.
veterans as well. And so that
Yep.
always spoke to me.
Yep.
And a lot of them, again, hard workers, worked and saved their whole lives. And then
Yep.
we get into this position, this place where, okay, we're starting to age a little bit. Maybe we need some help. What do we do? What's out there? What's the best way to get help? Do we have to spend all of our money and, basically go broke in order to care for ourselves? So, again, I like the analogy that you made at the beginning of being kind of the general contractor, right? You're helping them find the subcontractors that are in these different niches that they need. So maybe walk me a little bit through either like the process, kind of when someone first comes to meet you, what you're looking for, what you do, how you guide them. What could someone expect when they talk to you?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes, the first call I get from someone, it's typically an adult child of an elder. Sometimes it's a spouse. Sometimes it's a person who's calling for themselves. But I would say, 50 to 60 to 70% of the time it's an adult child. So oftentimes they are calling me and they say, listen, I don't know what I don't know. I just need help. My mom is 85. She's home. I don't know whether she should still be at home. I don't know how to pay for help. I don't know what I don't know. So what I usually say is, okay, let's talk on the phone for, 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it lasts longer. Tell me a little bit about what you are facing. Tell me a little bit about your individual situation, just sort of like you said, a bird's eye view. And then I tell them what I do. So I give them my spiel about being the general contractor, and we see if it's a good fit. And this is a free consultation over the phone where I can just, talk to them, figure out what they're facing, tell them about me, and then we decide if we want to move forward.
Okay.
And then if they want to move forward, we set up a time to do what I call an initial consult, which is usually 60 to 90 minutes. It's pretty long.
Okay.
And during that time, we get into the real nuts and bolts of both what they're facing and how I can help. So what I tell people is, at the end of this hour and a half, I want you to walk out of here with all of your initial questions answered and a plan. So at the very beginning of that initial consult, I always say to them, okay, what do you want to get out of this, right? Because everybody's coming to me from a very different situation. So what do you want to get out of this 90 minutes? Let's make it really fruitful. And then we talk, we go over, I ask lots and lots of questions, details, not only about the present situation, but I always tell people, if there's time, I like to go back and I like to ask the family about that elder as a person, right? Because I like my clients to not just be a name and a date of birth and a medication list. So I like to say, okay, we've talked about the current problem, right? So to speak, I know about their medical history in general. You've told me what you want to get out of this. I'm going to help you. But give me 10 or 15 minutes and tell me who they were as a parent, as a spouse, as a sister, as, you know, what did they do for work? Did they travel? What kind of person were they? So I also like to do that in my initial consults because I like to really get to know my clients. And typically this initial consult is without the elder. It's typically the adult children or the spouse or whomever coming to me and really just wanting to tell me everything about what they're facing, what they don't know. And usually, so after that initial meeting, and I say usually, right, because I'm flexible and I can pivot. Every situation is different. So I say this is the typical, there's always an exception to the rule.
Yep.
But so typically we meet for that 90-minute consult. All of our questions are answered, both the client and mine. And then I say, okay, here's what I would recommend, whether it's, you know, something, you know, they give me usually an overall financial picture. So whether I say, okay, you know, in general, you're in a pretty good financial spot to pay for home care, or, you know, listen, I think we need to talk maybe to an elder law attorney about mass health. So I'm making all kinds of recommendations, whether it's financial, medical, housing, you know, anything can come out of that, because like I said, every client is in a very different space. So after that initial meeting, I say, okay, you know, think about what I said, talk to your family, talk to your mom, your dad, whomever. And my next step would be going to meet your, you know, parent, spouse, aunt, uncle, where they are. So that's usually the second step.
Okay.
And then we go from there. And every client and family, I have a very different level of involvement with every client and family. Some folks I'm involved with pretty acutely for a short period of time, and I sort of help the elder get to a more stable place. Some people I manage their care for years and years. So
Okay.
it just depends on the client and the family.
Okay. And when we're talking about managing their care, right, one of the things that I think is a misconception out there for the people that I see is when they think of, especially if they're thinking about long-term care, they're
Yep.
automatically thinking nursing home,
Yep.
when in reality, there are all different types of levels of care out there, from care in your home to adult daycare to assisted living, that sort of thing. So when you, again, being like the general contractor here, are you making recommendations to them about kind of which ones out of this vast group of different types of care, you know, do they need, and what's going to fit with them and their family?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like you said, people think long-term care, they think nursing home, right? But nowadays we have all kinds of different options, all kinds of different, you know, different pay scales, different, you know, different amounts that you would pay for a nursing home versus home care versus an adult day health versus, you know, an assisted living or a CCRC. There's all kinds of different options to help the elder, you know, live independently. And that's always our main goal. And most people's goal is, listen, how do we help this person remain as independent as is safely possible, right? And you know, allow them to live their life in the way that they want. You know, a lot of people have an idea in their head about how they want to spend their, you know, these years, and that's what I try to do, is to help them get there. You know, I have folks that say, I don't care what you do, but I want to, you know, I want to die in this house. I want to remain in this house. I don't want to go to a nursing home. I don't want to go anywhere. And I say, okay. And, you know, what I love about talking to an elder law attorney is, you know, pretty much every one of my clients, unless it's a very, very, very simple, straightforward situation, I recommend that everyone sees an elder law attorney, right? So if they don't already have one, I give them recommendations, because everybody needs to make sure they have their documents in place. Everyone needs to make sure they understand what's happening. So between myself, an elder law attorney, and a financial planner, I usually say that's sort of the trifecta of folks that an elder should have in their, you know, on their team. I help with the healthcare and with the care management and talking about housing and all that. And then the elder law attorney, you know, you talk about what you talk about, you're extremely important. And then the financial planner. So, you know, I always tell people in my initial meeting, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a financial planner. I do like to talk overall big picture financials, because it helps me to understand what I can recommend. You know, it's very different if somebody has $100,000 versus if they have $3 million, right? It's very, very different, and it can sort of shape our conversation. So I do ask for that, but the recommendation to a financial planner and an elder law attorney is also key.
And I like that you're talking about getting to know the family, getting to know the elder, because you're trying to take their goals and wants into consideration. So, some people are really quick to go in and say, no, this person needs nursing home. Whereas you're listening to someone that might say, you know what, no, I really want to stay here. Can we work towards making that happen? And you're really taking that into consideration when you're making recommendations and trying to do what's best for them, but also, what's going to, again, keep them as independent as possible, keep them as happy as possible, and do what they want. Right. So one of the other kind of sad things that I see a lot in what I do is that the elder population is one of those groups that gets preyed upon by, there's all kinds of scam artists out there and that sort of thing. There are companies that offer elder care services, but they don't really have the training or the knowledge or the staff to do it well. So when you're making recommendations to people, I have to think that from all the experience and training that you have, that you're recommending, for lack of a better term, I'll call it vendors, service providers that you trust and have relationships with, and that are going to do it right.
Exactly, which is so important. And that's oftentimes why people come to me. You can do a Google search and if you Google home care in, Woburn, you're going to get a million hits, right? And you don't know what to click on. You don't know who's the best. You don't know who's going to, like you said, take advantage. I mean, and there are people out there, there are companies out there that do prey upon the elderly, and it's hard to know who to trust. So that's absolutely part of what I do is to direct them towards professionals that I've worked with, that I have a relationship with, that I trust, that I would trust with my own family members. So that's a huge part of it.
And that's a great way to put it. Someone that you trust with your own family members. I tell my clients that all the time when I'm making recommendations. I say, look, if I'm sitting across the table from my mom, here's what I'm telling her. And this is the advice I'm giving. If she, that's how I try to look at it. What's the advice that I would give to someone in my own family? And aside from even, people out there that are intentionally looking to scam this population, we've also got people that are running services that maybe their heart's in the right place, but they're just stretched too thin, or they don't have the staff, and people don't show up for services, but you've been able to cultivate this over your years and years of doing this, that you know who to recommend and who's going to do a good job.
Right, exactly. And and obviously there are things that happen. And one of the good things about having a geriatric care manager involved is, like you said, I like to think most people, their hearts are in the right place. They want to do a good job. And one of the good things about having me involved is sometimes it just makes people stiffen up a little bit when I call and I say, hey, listen, I am a geriatric care manager. I'm involved with this patient of yours. We're all on the same side here, right? We want to make sure that we're doing what's best for John Doe. Can we have a meeting and just talk about it? And sometimes just having that professional involvement, it shouldn't, but it does, right? It makes people stiffen up a little bit and say, oh, geez, I better make sure that all my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. So sometimes just that level of advocacy can change the course of a hospital stay, a rehab stay, that kind of thing. Because they say, oh boy, this person knows what they're talking about. We better make sure this is happening.
We need to be on our game, right? Okay, Suzanne's watching, so we need to we need to be on our A game here.
Exactly. And I always go in. I tell people I go in with a very soft approach. I develop good relationships with these folks, but I am your advocate, right? I'm working for you, the client, the elder, the family. So I will advocate for what needs to be done, right? And if I see that this person is not receiving the highest quality of care, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to say something, and we're going to call a meeting, and we're going to figure it out. So, I really become an advocate and a team member to that client.
Yeah, I love that. I love that this team concept that you're talking about. Because that's the way I look at things as well. And, I stay in my own lane. And that's why a lot of times I need someone like you to fill in that gap that I don't have,
Yep.
So talk to me about, you mentioned probably the first start is this kind of quick phone call.
Yep.
If I've got a client that needs your services, where do we go? What do we do? How do we get in touch with you? How do we start?
Yeah. So any number of ways, but honestly, my website if they want to take a look first, but I always just recommend that people call, because it's not a clear-cut profession. You know, it's not like my light is out and I know I need an electrician. This is sort
Yeah.
of it's a little bit more vague than that. So I always recommend, and I always love and welcome a phone call, so that I can tell them how I can help, so that I can hear them talk about what they're facing. So, you know, my website, my email, that's all wonderful. But I always welcome a phone call, you know, just to ask me. And maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe they're not looking for what I do, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I always welcome a phone call so that I can clarify, so that I can listen. Sometimes that, you know, sometimes in a quick 15-minute phone call, I realize, you know, this person really, they're not looking for my services, or perhaps they can't afford my services, but I can still point them in the right direction, right? I can still give a little bit of assistance, which I really like to do. You know, I like to be able to say, okay, listen, you know, and I'm honest when I say I don't think this is going to be a good fit for whatever reason, but let me give you this resource or this resource or this website, and they might be able to help you. So
Right.
I always welcome that phone call.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I'll make sure your contact information displays for our clients that watch this, but throw it out there anyway. What's a phone number?
Absolutely. So give me a call anytime, 617-257-0714. I'll say it one more time. It's 617-257-0714. And like I said, just give a call. Lots of times you don't know what you don't know. So let me clarify it for you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and for anyone that likes to do a little peeking around on the web
Yeah.
first, give your website too, just so that we have it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kinship, KIN, kinshipeldercare.com.
All right, perfect. So kinshipeldercare.com. But
Yep.
that initial call is going to be the best way for, again, you and the client to determine whether you're a fit, whether they're in need of the services that you provide, or even a referral to a different resource.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, like I said, that initial call comes from someone that doesn't know what they need. And sometimes it is me saying, listen, I don't think you're ready for my services, but please call this elder law attorney. Please call this financial planner, or please go to the Mass Health website and see, you know, see what services you need. But so it's just, I can point them in the right direction, even if that direction doesn't lead to me. So
yeah, and that's great, because so many people, like you said, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to take that first step.
Yep.
And you're able to guide them there. So Suzanne, I can't thank you enough for taking the time this morning. This is hugely helpful. I know that it's information that's going to be of great interest to my clients, because I get that every day, that question: what do I do first? Where do I start? Who do I call? So being able to point them to this and say to call you, it's an amazing resource. So thank you so much for taking the time with me this morning. I appreciate it so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I have to say, you know, you lawyers get a bad reputation sometimes, right? But it's really important to me to have relationships with attorneys that I feel like are really invested in the client too. So I really appreciate that too, knowing that you are, you know, especially where you got involved with the populations from a family standpoint. So it's comforting to know that there are attorneys out there that, hey, they care about what they're doing and they're going to do what's best for the client. So I appreciate that for my clients.
Awesome. All right, Suzanne, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Too.